Well, here I am, fresh from coming back from Wembley Stadium, where the Wrexham football fans owned Wembley. And nowhere, not even at a rugby match, have I ever heard the Welsh national anthem, Hen Wlad fy Nhadau, sang with such passion. The boys fell short, but a great day out. Welcome to June's edition of Wrexham Property TV. And coming up in June's edition is landlords in Wrexham. I'm sure will have heard that there's some new far-reaching legislation in Wales. And with regards to this, Belmar essentially asked me to stand in front of a camera to talk about maybe the main highlights of that particular legislation. I thought it would be an opportune moment to also share with you the video that we've produced, because it will summarise for you some of the salient differences between the existing situation and what it will be like post. So take a look at this video. Are you currently a landlord in Wales, or are you thinking of becoming a landlord in Wales? Well, if the answer to either question is yes, the content of this video will be important to you. This year, there will be the implementation of the most fundamental and wide-ranging changes ever seen in the rental sector in Wales, through the introduction of the Renting Homes Wales Act of 2016. We thought it would be useful to give you an overview of the main changes. Although I should add, there are some additional elements to the legislation which have yet to be finalised and published. The existing assured short-haul tenancies will convert to occupational contracts, following which landlords have a maximum period of 6 months to issue to their tenants a written statement of the converted occupational contract. It's not just the contract that changes, but the whole terminology also changes. For example, property becomes dwelling, tenant becomes contract holder, tenancy agreement becomes occupational contract with written statements. Also, very importantly, there are fundamental terms that must be in the agreements. And if they are not, then the rent may not be payable until they are put right. Also, reimbursement of rent to the tenant may be awarded retrospectively in such cases. In future, where a no-fault notice is issued, the minimum notice period must be 6 months. Further, a landlord will not be able to issue such a notice until 6 months after the start of the contract. Effectively, this means the minimum term will be 12 months going forward. What is critically important to you as a landlord to understand is this: you will not be able to give such notice unless you have complied with certain obligations, which it could include registration and licensing with Rent Smart Wales and observing deposit protection rules. Going forward, landlords will be held directly responsible to ensure that properties are fit for human habitation. In practical terms, this will include electrical safety testing, ensuring working smoke alarms, and testing carbon monoxide detectors. And not forgetting to take immediate action on valid issues raised by tenants like condensation problems. Most importantly, rent will not be payable for any period during which the dwelling is considered not fit for human habitation. This can mean that retrospective reimbursement of rent to the tenant may be deemed to be payable if the landlord has not effectively remedied the issue in a time-efficient manner. Also, no-fault possession notice issued by the landlord in response to poor repair requests, commonly every day known as retaliatory eviction, will no longer be allowed. A court can refuse a possession order, and it will not be possible to issue a further no-fault notice until 6 months later. The new legislation will mean that a joint contract holder will be able to leave a contract without ending the existing contract entirely. Also, a new joint contract holder can be added without having to end the current contract and have to start a new one. This enables both a priority and reserve successors to succeed the occupational contract. This, in turn, allows two successions to contract to take place. For example, a spouse followed by another family member. In addition, a new succession right for carers is also created in the legislation. There's quite a lot to get your head around, plus a lot more in the detail, the depth of detail. And not all the regulations are even published yet. And yes, it will mean and demand a higher, more detailed level of property management going forward. However, please be assured that Belvoir have all necessary access to knowledge and amended administrative processes in place to protect your interests. Residential property to rent will remain an attractive investment option over the medium term in Wales. If you are a landlord and you need some advice or support during this period, please contact your local Belvoir office. We'd be very pleased to support and help you. Well, we've chosen a perfect day in a fantastic village location here in the park with a gentle murmur of the lawnmower doing the final cut on the bowling green behind me, and behind my left-hand shoulder you've got a lovely view onto Minera and the River Clywedog. So this month's area guide is in the village of Coed Poeth. So Coed Poeth is a large village that lies to the west of Wrexham, just under 4 miles away. And by a large village, the census of 2011 had both Coed Poeth and Minera's population at just under 6,000. I would imagine now it's closer to 6,500 people in this village. And it is what I'd call a proper village, in the sense it's got all the amenities that you'd expect in the village. It's got 2 primary schools, Ysgol Pengelly and also Ysgol Bryn Tamor. And it's, in terms of shops and general amenities, everything that you would need is actually within the village itself. And of course, a great also bus route straight into Wrexham, where I believe there are at least 4 buses every hour that run from Coed Poeth. So, based on 2021 average prices, how much money would you need to spend if you wanted to live in a house in Coed Poeth? Well, I can tell you that the average house price in Coed Poeth for last year was £174,000. Semi-detached properties accounted for just under 40% of the total residential sales mix, and the average semi-detached property cost £157,000. That's actual prices paid as an average. Terrace properties were £121,000 as an average, whereas detached properties came in at nearly £302,000 as an average. However, there are exceptions. It may not surprise the locals at all, but the most expensive residential area are two roads. One is Lower Road and the other is Top Road, where property prices can reach in excess of £400,000. And the reason is quite clear. Just take a look behind me. So that's the story of Coed Poeth, where you have got some picturesque views all around the village itself and a great deal of amenities, very much a proper village in my language, with all the amenities that any of the residents would want. And again, very, very good bus routes and regular bus service to Wrexham itself. But in terms of the views, quite breathtaking in places, and there aren't many places where you even get a view from where the local co-op is. The market itself is still very, very buoyant. Prices are still very high, and for the limited amount of properties that are on the market compared to previous years, we're still attracting a lot of viewers to each property we're putting on for sale, which means that they are attracting top prices and are being sold still very quickly. Reading the professional magazines currently, there seems to be a slowdown in the market already beginning to occur in the southeast. Centred around London, there are less people looking to buy, and prices are being diluted because of a lack, relatively speaking, a lack of interest in those property prices. Inflation rate, the higher utility cost, the higher fuel cost, all that now is beginning to have an impact on the property price markets there. On that basis, I think July, you will see in the houses that are currently being built in and around Wrexham, you will see the first release of those new estates. So there'll be an increase in the number of new properties coming on the market, possibly in the region of 300 or 400. And as a result, people will have a choice. That undoubtedly will have an impact, I would say, on the market. Difficult to predict how much at this stage, but definitely will have an impact. I suppose the question that you're now asking yourself is, well, is it the right time to buy? Honestly, I would say yes. Not just because I'm an estate agent, but because, simply put, you're not buying. If you're buying a home, you're not buying it to sell in a year. Most people in the UK, as an average, stay 7 or 8 years in a property. Over 7 or 8 years, whatever you're buying your property for right now, it will easily have run through the peaks and troughs over a 7-8 year period, and you should come out with some added equity when you do choose eventually to sell that property. If you find a home that you have fallen in love with in an area you want to live in, please believe me when it's still a good time to buy. And relatively speaking, it is still a good time to buy in terms of both mortgage rates, because historically they're still fairly low. And secondly, if you're looking at house prices as a proportion of what the average salary is, houses today are cheaper, in inverted commas, than they were even 20 years ago. So let me know what you think. I'll be delighted to answer any questions or opinions you may have about the information I've given you. Well, that's June's edition of Wrexham Property TV done. And if you do have any suggestions of what we can include in future episodes, please let us know. The details of how to get in touch are underneath this particular post. And also to let you know that during the month of July, there will be a break from Wrexham Property TV due to holiday commitments. So the next episode of Wrexham Property TV will be in August, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for watching the show.